It's Jeremy Daly again from Ampt here. We are going to do another live stream today. We're going to be talking about password protected environments, and hopefully my Elgato Camlink 4 will hold up because it seems to be shaky lately. So it is being kind of shaky. Sorry about that. Hopefully. I just got to get a better cable for it. Anyways, school vacation week here in my house, so if you hear dog barking or kids screaming, it's just all part of being a parent. So anyway, so just quickly overview of Ampt. If you're not familiar with Ampt, essentially what Ampt is it's a series of productized patterns that are automatically deployed and managed to AWS for you, which essentially allows you to build things like Next.js site or webhooks or event-driven applications or data-intensive applications or APIs, things like that. These are these standardized patterns that we've built and productized for you so that all you have to do is write application code, and it's pretty straightforward. You basically just write regular Node or Next or Fastify or Astro, Express, 11t, any of those things, any sort of Node-based or Node or JavaScript type script-based application just automatically works on Ampt. So it's pretty cool. But anyways, let's get into a couple of different things. We'll start with an announcement that we made the other day that we've introduced these things called password-protected environments. And the idea behind this is, if you're familiar with sort of the way that Ampt works, Ampt is all about providing you with your own isolated sandboxes or environments for every application and every sort of stage of the application you work on, which means that as a developer, when I spin up an application, I'm actually getting, or I spin up an environment, I'm getting my own isolated AWS account that I'm running in, which means all of the quotas and everything that's associated with that, all those bulkheads are all there for me, giving me that isolation and all the power of the AWS account without interfering with other AWS accounts. This is flipping out on me here. Hold on. See if I can stabilize that. I do not know why. Apologies for that. I think I'm going out to buy another cable today because this is driving me nuts. Anyways, so you get that isolated environment, and then when you want to share that, rather than you sharing your URL and basically say, okay, look at this, and then I'm not going to touch it because I don't want to break anything while you're looking at it, you can actually share a preview of that, which copies everything that you have in that environment, moves it to a completely separate, isolated environment, and lets stakeholders look at that. You can make changes, you can update that environment, so if somebody notices a bug and you want to fix something and then keep that URL running so that they can keep checking it out, you have the ability to do that. You can create multiple preview environments. So if you wanted to, have different versions of something and you wanted to say, okay, here's version 1, here's version 2, here's version 3, you could actually publish all of those in parallel and then have people be able to evaluate those different things in real time and have access to that, as well as deploy them to permanent stages where, it could have a staging or a dev stage where these would be more permanent environments that would kind of, continue to live, and then obviously your production stage where you would publish that too. But part of the thing with the way that, these sort of systems work is if you give out a new URL or you have a preview environment, you don't necessarily want other people to be able to view those environments, especially if they're outside of the organization or not a stakeholder. So protecting an environment is a little bit different than just sort of protecting an endpoint, right? Because we have a whole bunch of stuff that runs within that environment that includes potentially static assets like PDFs and images and other things like that. You might have APIs that need to be protected. You might have front-end HTML that you want to make sure is protected. So the idea of introducing an environment password that'll go ahead and protect that entire environment, that's what we wanted to experiment with, and that's what we ended up sort of launching here. So I want to show you a little bit about how that works, and we'll play around with a couple different things, and then I want to show you some other authentication options as well. So this is sort of great to protect your internal workloads. This is not a solution for having people sign into your website and being able to access stuff and so forth. So let's start with the password protected environments, and then let's talk about how we can implement authorization independent, more user-focused authentication that you would use for someone to log into the website and be able to access, protected resources. So, all right, so let's start with this. So basically, the idea behind password-protected environments, and please comment, by the way, if you have any questions. Happy to try and answer them the best that I can. But essentially, if I zoom in here. Always forget how to zoom in. There we go. Okay. So basic idea here is that you set up a password in the Ampt dashboard. We'll walk through all this stuff. You can set a password, and then you can apply that to individual environments, or you can apply that to all preview environments. Generally, that makes sense. If you're deploying a preview environment, you want to automatically password protect that, just so that people don't have, the access to these new things. You don't have to go in manually and set a password every single time. So it'll just automatically happen for you. You can also go and add them to permanent stages. So something like a dev stage or a staging stage, even a production stage. If it was an internal app and you wanted to protect it, you could do that as well. But essentially, when you check off this set for all preview environments, this will go ahead and make sure that all future environments will have that password there. One of the things that is very, very cool about the way that we do this, at least I think it's very cool, is we apply the password immediately at the runtime level. So we are working with distributed applications. Everything is coordinated through CDNs and through CloudFront distributions and so forth. So there's a lot of things that need to update and need to change quickly. So the second you apply a password, that'll automatically be enforced at the runtime level, meaning that if somebody tries to access something, an API or an HTML file or something like that, that'll automatically be applied for you. But because the way that we do static caching or static asset routing, we actually move that all to the edge. So it takes a couple of minutes to update CloudFront functions and make sure that that's all set for you. It just does it automatically, but you'll see the status of what's happening there. So you'll get immediate protection. And then as soon as it's actually deployed, you'll get the added protection of the edge, and it's a lot faster as well. Once you apply that, you'll get this little password box when you try to access an environment. One of the things that we've done right now is we are not protecting the API routes directly. So if you request, if you're using Postman or Insomnia or some other API interface in order to access the API and test some things on the API, we're not protecting that just yet. And part of the reason is because you'd have to send in some other authorization, right? Because you don't have the benefits of having cookies there, which is what we use to sort of track that authentication. So those aren't protected right yet, but we are exploring the idea of adding that sort of an extra key that you have to pass in with these requests if you did in fact want to do that. Otherwise, it would read the cookie from from a front end interface or something that you were doing. So, anyways, you will get this password protected box that pops up anytime you try to load an asset that is sort of that's loaded via cookie, or it's a web-based asset, and then we are also going to potentially, this is something that we're talking about, is allow you to customize this too. So if you want to put your own logo there and maybe change the colors and so forth, especially if you were a development company or an agency and you were sharing this with customers and you wanted to share, a particular thing with them, you could, or a particular current version of the system or whatever, you could do that with them as well. So anyway, so that's pretty cool. And then this sort of just talks about how it works. And of course, we always want to know what you think so that we can continue to iterate on it. So anyways, let's go ahead and let's apply this, and we'll build something really quickly here. So let me open a new VS Code window here. And let's create, let's see, let's go into cd git /sandbox here, and we'll make a directory called auth demo like this. We'll cd into auth demo, and then we'll open this up in the code window here. Okay, so we are in a empty directory called auth demo, and then within here we're just going to run the ampt command. Again, install the ampt CLI, just npm global or npm i-g at ampt/CLI. You can see it on the docs how to do that. I'm going to use demo. I'm going to create a new app. What do I want to create for an app? I'm going to create an app, use the Hono template. and I'm going to call this auth demo. Yes, I want to use the current directory. So I'm going to use Hono here. Again, you can use any backend you want. That doesn't matter for the password protection thing, but I'm using Hono because I do want to show how Clerk works, or how we can integrate Clerk. If you're familiar with Clerk, it's like Auth0 or one of these other ones. So it's pretty cool, and so I want to make sure that we can show that. And I just really like Hono, so that's how it is. Anyways, so this created a new environment for us here, so we can see that we get this new URL. This URL is specific to us, specific to me as a developer working on this particular app. I can open this here in the browser, and this is going to load my sort of a static placeholder page here. If you static folder here, we've got this index file, and again, I know I've shown this a million times, but just in case you're new and you're watching it, just show you just how cool Ampt is from a developer perspective. So this is a local file. All of these files are running on my machine right now. If I go in and I change something here, and I change this to hello from Ampt like this, you'll notice like down there's that little lightning bolt. As soon as I click save, that'll just spin, say that it's synced. And if I jump back over here and don't click on that, and I refresh this page, I'll immediately get this change here. So this works for front-end static assets, it works for back-end APIs, all kind of things like that. It's instantly synced into a production parity developer sandbox, so you have that fidelity in your development environment. You're using all those cloud resources. So it's pretty cool. We'll see a little bit more of that in a minute. Anyway, so this is also created here a backend for me. This is just using Hono, creating Hono, using the creating a new Hono app. Has a couple of routes that we've defined here automatically, and then it uses this app.fire. Hono is super flexible if you're using it with like a Node backend or some of these other things. Ampt supports, or the Ampt runtime polyfill supports the fetch-based routing. So what app.fire does is it adds an event listener automatically for you, which just basically says, listen for any HTTP events, and we're going to go ahead and route them and use Hono as the router to do that. Pretty straightforward. If we want to see how this works here, we can just go ahead and type in hello. Also helps when we spell these things correctly. So hello here. So that's just on that hello route. And like I said, if I change this to hello from Ampt, as soon as I save it, come over here, refresh, it's immediately available for me to test and play around with. Okay, all right, so we've created this API now, with this little front end, with the little front end component here as well. We want to go ahead and we want to share this. Oops, let me zoom out of that. So we want to go ahead and we want to share this. We want other people to be able to see it so they can test it. By the way, this URL is public. This is for my developer sandbox, but as soon as I disconnect from the sandbox, this URL goes away. Would love to know if you'd like to see like more of a maybe like an IP based or something that would protect your URL so that others outside of it, or maybe a proxy to it or something like that. And again, we're always interested in ways that make you feel more comfortable as a developer working in this a little bit of a new style, right? Because everything is uploading to a public URL. So anyways, let us know. So I do want to share this though, and I want to share this outside my organization or maybe inside my organization with some stakeholders. What do I want to do here? Well, before I even go and publish this, let's go ahead and go back to our code here. Sorry. And I'm going to just type in open here in the CLI, and that's going to open me up to the dashboard to this particular app that I'm working on right now. So here is my demo org, here's the auth demo right there, and then I see that I've got this sandbox called Jeremy. So I'm going to go into settings, and I'm going to go into password protection, and I'm going to go ahead and click to add a new password, and I'm just going to do test 1 2 3. Super safe password. There are, it says all existing environments already have a password set because there are no environments, but I'm going to go ahead and check off set for all preview environments, and I'm going to hit create. So this will go ahead and create this password for me here. We can see that the password is listed. There is nothing else happening though. There's no environments to protect just yet. So let's go ahead and share an environment. So if you're on one of our team plans, then you can actually share. You can create these preview environments simply by typing in share here. The other thing you can do is this can all be set up with CI/CD. It's all built into Ampt for you, and it will automatically create preview environments on PRs or pull requests and things like that. So it's very cool. But I'm going to type in share and hit enter. And this is going to go ahead and generate a new preview environment for me. If I jump back over to my auth demo, I see that this new environment is here. It's currently being created. If I went in and went to look, well, there wouldn't be a deployment record yet because it's still working. But essentially, this is a completely independent environment from this here. So now this is getting created. And if I go into my settings and into password protection, we're not seeing anything yet because it's not deployed, right? So we have to wait for it to deploy. So go back down here. This usually takes, depending on the build steps and some of those things, it's usually less than 60 seconds. But it's still pretty fast. Again, we give you that high fidelity sandbox so you can test these changes really, really quickly. And then you have, the ability to do some of these shares here. So that took, maybe 60 seconds or so. So now we have this new environment that I'm not going to open just yet. Hold on. I want to go back over here and show that we now have this environment that's a preview. It was created a few seconds ago, and you see that it's deploying the update. So this says the password is being updated at the edge, but it's still enforced in this state, if we can actually see that. I'll zoom in. All right, so it's still being enforced in this state, which means that if we were to go over to this URL here and open this, we are going to get this password box here. So now all I should have to do is type in my password, which is test123, and then hit submit, and it'll tell me it's an invalid password. Why? What did I do? Did I type it wrong? Test123? There we go. Okay, I must have typed it in wrong. All right, so now I have access to this particular endpoint here, and now I can go to all the other things that I had set up and so forth. So now I've got this protection there, and in the background, it is working to apply this to the edge. And again, like I said, the edge just gives us a little bit extra protection, protects against some of those static assets and some of those other things. There's so much more we can do with this, but we wanted to get this out there, see how people like it and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and let this deploy. And while that's deploying, I'm actually going to go in and change this. And I'm going to remove this set for all preview environments and hit update. So this is working. It's still deploying because this one still has that applied to it. And then I'm going to jump back over here and I'm going to share another copy of this thing, create another environment. So again, completely isolated, independent environment. If I go back to this here, oh, there we go. I'll see that this new environment is now being created as as well. Go into settings, go into password protection, and I just see this one right here. So this is the only one that's going to get that applied to it. So if I jump back here, we'll wait for this to go ahead and generate or deploy, I should say. All right, so usually about 60 seconds. Try to give you some, sort of updates of what it's actually doing so you can see it. And then we should get back a URL. There we go. So now we have this URL. We'll open this up here, and this will not be password protected. So we've got this one over here that will remain password protected. And if we go in and inspect, we'll see under application here that we have this Ampt cookie right there. So we can just delete this. If we delete the Ampt cookie and then try to refresh this here, now we'll get the password again on this one, but we're obviously not going to get it on this one. Like that. Wow. Keep missing that O. Try that again. We're not getting it on that one. So over here we get it. So again, we type the password in again. Test123. Submit. And now we have access to that. So just a nice feature. Gives you the ability to have a little bit more, security and peace of mind that when you're sharing these URLs with other people, that you can protect them. That if for some reason the URL itself was to get leaked, excuse me, that other people wouldn't be able to access it without the password. By the way, I got this new bottle, this Lark. I don't know if people know about these Lark bottles with the automatic cleaning or disinfecting thing, but this was from Pluralsight. Awesome company, by the way, and great people there. So anyways, try the Lark bottle and try out Pluralsight too. Okay, so that's password protected environments. We should see now that this is in fact ready. So again, we just get this password protection is now happening at the edge, which means we've synced the password up there. That's encoded at the edge. So now when people try to access it, it does all of that there before it allows you. So that on the origin request or on the viewer request, it does the check there. So okay, that's that. It's great, and one of the things that you could do here is if we wanted to deploy, so let's say we deployed a dev stage. I'm gonna type in deploy dev. Maybe this is staging, maybe it's, it's sort of like your you want to have a group of people that look over stuff before it's sent out. I'm not a huge fan of sort of some of these staging accounts. I feel like, obviously it depends on your workflows, but preview accounts are the exact same fidelity as these sort of accounts. So if you do have a QA process where you want people to look at this before they then, sort of push it up to the next level, sure. Usually I like to be a little bit more, I don't want to say agile. That's the wrong way to say it. But I like kind of going from those preview environments and those, on a PR and say, that looks good. Let's merge it into main and then go ahead and have that deploy. But maybe you do have something like, so in this case here, this is this elegant app, right? So this is not password protected. By default anyways, your sort of these permanent stages wouldn't be. So anyways, so you've got this environment here that is, if I go back to this, back to auth demo, we'll see we now have this stage, right? So these stages are permanent. These will not delete. These will not go away. These are meant to be, always there and with consistent URLs and so forth. You can add custom domains to these and so forth. These are the ephemeral ones. But if I did want to say, well, this dev environment, I actually really would like to have a password on that. You can go into password protection. You can go in here, click on edit, and then from this environment, I can select the stage. I can update this. This will go ahead and apply that to the stage. Again, this is the elegant one. As soon as I refresh this, that password is immediately applied, but it's also updating at the edge. And this is the same password, by the way. This would be the test123. But I can actually have this as different passwords. I can create as many passwords as I want and have those different passwords apply to different environments and so forth. So anyways, it's a very cool feature, gives you a lot of control. And allows you to do some cool things there. So I'll let that run. Let's talk about actually securing like the APIs themselves from a user perspective. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to do this. I was thinking about maybe showing how you can roll your own auth. Sure, it's fun. It sounds like a good idea on a number of levels because you're like, oh, well, all I need to do is just store a username and store their password, hopefully, encrypted, in the, one-way encryption in the database. And then when they go to access it, I just look it up. I do the one-way hash of the password. I check against it. If that's right, I give them a cookie. Right, and then there's different ways. It's like, do you do JSON web tokens? Do you do JWT? Do you check it every single time somebody logs in? So let's say you're passing an authentication header. You could look that up in the database every single time and say, oh, that's still a valid token. There's ways that you can do that sort of stuff. If you want to do that, right? I mean, I'm not going to tell you not to do that because I've done that a number of times, especially for small things like admin apps where you only have a few users and whatever. But you want to start adding in social logins and some of these other things. It just becomes so much easier to use a third-party service. So we've been using we've been using Auth0 for a number of years. I've been using it for a very long time. It does get a little expensive when you start getting a bunch of users. And the other one though that's been around, or just I think is kind of really interesting, is is Clerk. So I don't know if anybody knows, if you know of Clerk. I mean, they've been a little bit loud lately, so I think they're doing pretty well. But Clerk is pretty good from a pricing standpoint. For $0. Why is this not? feel like I'm overly zoomed in. Oh, too much. Okay, 0. I guess that's what it's supposed to be. So $0, you get 10,000 monthly active users. It's got the pre-built components. You can add the custom domain. That's pretty good. And then even when you get to this point here where you kind of upgrade, it's $25 per month. You get all of these. You get the 2 cents per every 10,000 active users. I mean, it's pretty. It's per MAU, but after 10,000 users, so it's pretty good. You get to remove the clerk branding. You get the allow list and the block list, some customizable session duration. So you get a bunch of other things. But for the purpose of this, free is perfectly fine. So let's just go and see how we can actually integrate this. So I have just a personal account that I set up. I have a test auth thing that's going on here. Let's create a new application though, and we'll call this auth demo. And then I'm just going to do Google, right? So forget about having an email or password. Like, let's just make it so they use Google, right? And I can get rid of that for $25 a month, which is. And if I have more than 10,000 users, or if you have more than 10,000 users on your application, good for you. Monthly active users too, right? So you very well may. But again, it's relatively inexpensive. Okay, so anyway, so I'm going to just go ahead and create that application in the dashboard here. And there are all kinds of different ways that you can integrate this, right? So you can use Next, you can use React, you can use all these other things. It is pretty. They've got a bunch of these sort of things pre-built for you, which is super helpful. But we're just going to make it super simple. We're going to let them build the UI for us because we don't really have a front end or anything set up. So we're just going to jump straight to JavaScript, and this will give you this thing here that says, put this in your JavaScript. Or in your HTML, but it doesn't really give us anything else. So let's just jump over to the JavaScript guide. And what's nice about this, the docs here, by the way, for Clerk, is it actually links to the environment that you're in, the app that you're using, and so forth. So it'll actually give you the information specific to to what you're actually working on. So what we want to do here is we want to see if I can find these docs here. SDKs. I just had these docs a second ago. Quick starts, maybe. JavaScript. Here we go. Okay, so this is what we want to see. So there's 2 different ways that we can do this. We can use it with an NPM module or with a script. So let's do the script tag, right? Because we can set up a build step and use Webpack or whatever we want to do, or Vite or something like that in order to generate this, but that seems like a lot of work. So basically this just walks us through exactly what we're supposed to do here. This says that we will load the Clerk package from the CDN with our publishable key and the front-end API URL, and then it should be placed before any other script tags that use Clerk JS. And then you navigate to the dashboard, select your application, select the API keys, quick copy, blah, 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 blah. But essentially, this is already filled in for us, which is what's nice, right? So if I switch between my test one and my auth demo, like this just changes this key for me, so it gives me what it needs. It says that we can then listen for the Clerk package that it's loaded, and then we can allow users to sign in or sign out using this snippet of code here. I'm going to copy this entire snippet of code because this is the whole thing that we need, and I'm going to jump back over to our app here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this stuff here. Probably should delete that Hono image as well. Let me just remove that, and I'm going to remove the heart as well, and I'm going to paste this in here, right? So I'll make this a little bit smaller so we can see it. But essentially, this is just an HTML file, right? That's part of the template, and then we just pasted in this script tag here with this app, and this is just going to fill this in for us. So we'll save this. This will sync. We got to make sure we have the right URL here, which is our URL is Elegant Project. I think that's the one we have open over here, right? Elegant Project. Okay, so we refresh this, and we'll see if this works. Okay, so there we go. We got a sign in box right here that says continue with Google, and this should sign us into this tenant that we just created. We haven't done enough yet, though, to see how this actually works or if it would help us in any way. And I'm just going to go here and just for the heck of it, I'm going to add, I don't think we have a class for this, so I'll just go ahead and style this. Oops, bring back my old CSS skills before we had, oh, is it style? Yeah, before we had Tailwind. And we'll just do padding, and I'm just going to do 20 pixels like this. Save that, come back over here, refresh this, and now we just have a little bit more space. Now it's over to the left. It doesn't really matter, I guess, whatever. But so we've got this sign up thing here now, or sign in, sign up. I don't think either of these matter, right? It just sort of, we're in development mode anyways. But okay, so we've got this set up first. But we also need somewhere for it to direct us to after we sign in. So before we actually do the sign in piece of this here and the redirect, we want to actually be able to know if a user is signed in when they are on the back end of the site, right? Or when they're on our backend API, or when they're accessing, even a web. I mean, what's great about Ampt is you could just serve HTML back to the user as well. So you can go ahead and authorize them that way, and have all that auth stuff built in, and decide what to show them and all kinds of stuff. So your authentication is one part of it. Then the authorization in terms of what you show them, you can do that all in the backend. Anyway, so before I do that, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I can actually authorize, or I know if a user is signed in. So in here, and let me see if I can find it. There are some integrations here, and one of the integrations, I think it's integrations. Is it integrations? Plans and billing settings, webhooks, customizations, JWT templates. That's not it. Webhooks. Where is it? Let's see if I can find it here. Documentation is very good. Some of this stuff looks like it. User and authentication. This might be, I might need to jump back over to here. Okay, so I've got that front end overview, all docs. Here we go, reference. Okay, here's what I want, Hono. All right, so this is a community middleware that's built, but it is published to Hono, so it is on the @Hono, I guess, what would you call that, namespace for NPM. But so I'm going to go ahead and use this, and I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to type install. This just uses npm or whatever you're using as your package manager behind the scenes. So you can use yarn or pnpm if you want to. So I've just installed that, and then I also have to install this clerk backend here. So I'll just run install this. So now we've got these two things installed, and then it says we need to have a clerk secret key and a clerk publishable key that we have to have in our environment variables for this to work. So one of the things that we actually added to Ampt not too long ago, because this was something where you could load our parameters, and then our parameters were, you could export the parameter as an environment variable, but you had to do that in your code. And some people were like, wow, what if we have a package that loads before I can do this, or maybe it's part of the build or whatever. So one of the other cool things that we added to Ampt a while back was the ability to create parameter groups within our parameter system. So you go into the app itself, so all parameters should be created sort of the app level. You can't create them at the individual instance level or the environment level. You can override them at the environment level, but the point here is to have these be consistent across the entire app, right? So especially when you're publishing into different environments, you want that to work. You can also set them at the org level if you want them to populate down to all your apps, and then they can be overridden at the app level as well. But anyways, not super important right now, but I want to show you the adding a group and how we can use this to put these in and export those environment variables automatically. So let's create a name for the group. We're just going to call this clerk auth, like this. We don't need a description. So the first key that we need is this clerk secret key. And then we want to export it as a variable name. So we're going to export it as that as well. So we need to find this clerk secret key. So in order to do that, we would go back into dashboard here. And I think it is somewhere in here. There is a let's see, API keys. Okay, so this is going to give me my publishable key and my default or my secret key. So I'm going to copy the secret key, and then I'm going to delete this afterwards anyways, but just so we're extra safe and somebody doesn't do something before, I'm going to go ahead and move it off the screen and add it so that you can't see what I just added. Okay, anyways, I've added my secret key in. All I did was hit create. And now I have a new box that I can add additional keys. Now these are groups, right? So go back to this. So this also says I need my publishable key. So I will go back to params, add the publishable key there, drop that key there, and then over here we should have our publishable key. This is visible, human readable, so we don't have to worry about hiding that. And we're going to drop that value in like this, and we are going to click add. So now we have these two keys. And then I'm going to click create. And now what this has just done is this has just created this secret key and publishable key for me behind the scenes. And because it is, you see this little gray box there, this is being exported as well. And what's nice too is you can always come and see what these keys are within the system if you want to check what they are. It's just again, you could. These are being exported into your application, so you could just dump these variables anyways and see them. So we just want to make it a little bit easier for you to be able to access those. Anyways, we now have these both in our parameters and also being exported into environment variables within our application. So let's look at the next step. So what this is saying is we want to bring in this import here. So we'll jump over to our index and let's import this like that. And then it says we need to use this little app use thing here. So and now again, we want to apply this if we're applying it to everything, right? So if we apply this here and then use this, so this is actually, this is using us on a specific route. So this won't matter, but essentially this will do the clerk middleware. This will run on every route. So any route we define before this wouldn't have this applied, wouldn't have that middleware applied. I think you can also apply this inline, so forth. You could create a group or a route. I think you could create a group and you could do some of those other things. That's Hono. But anyway, so basically what this is going to do is this is going to get auth, use the get auth here with the whatever passed in. And then it's going to say if the auth user ID is authorized, then we're going to say you are not logged in or not whatever. And then if it is, we will return this and say you are logged in. Now, if we did this as middleware, we could just go ahead and pass this along to the next, and then you'd have, it can do all kinds of things. But anyways, so let's try this. So this is at slash. Just at slash. This isn't going to help us very much because we've got that static index file. So I'm just going to change this to slash auth, which will allow us now to go to our app here and type in slash auth like this. Now this will go ahead and load this and say you are not logged in, which makes sense because we haven't authorized ourselves yet. So the last piece of this that I want to do just to make sure that when we log in that it then redirects us. So again, Clerk is pretty cool in terms of how it does most of this stuff for us. So if we go to, I think it's where is it? Got to figure out where this is. Paths, domains. That's if we want to change the domain. Sorry, I'm not overly familiar with Clerk. I just, play around with it casually. Is it integrations? No. Customizations, account portal. Yeah, okay, here it is. I think this is where it is. All right, so these are the sign in, the sign up. This is where we would go if we want to, if we wanted to link somebody directly, but in order to have it pass without being overly complicated, just using that JavaScript interface automatically detects the URL for us and some other things. So here's what we want is the redirect. So after somebody signs up, we want them to just go to that slash auth endpoint like this. And here we want them to go to that slash auth. And then let's say if they click the logo, they'll just go back here. So we set those up. We hit save changes. And redirect settings are saved. So I'm not logged in right now. I'm going to go back to our main page here. It's going to give me this giant sign-in box. And let's see what happens. So I click sign in with Google. I'll use my Jeremy at jeremydaly.com. It says you have to share it with this. Now, again, this can be customized. When you pay for it, you get some other things. Hit continue, and it's signing me in and then redirecting me, and I am now logged in with this user ID. All right, so it should be when I refresh this, this should, yep, it should keep me logged. So now I'm logged in. I'm sure there's some ways to log out, other things that you can do, but essentially now I have this logged in capability, and I'm getting this user ID. Now, what's also cool about this is if you go to this middleware, you can access the back-end client piece of this, right? So we've already imported the clerk and the clerk middleware and the get auth. So now when I'm here, I can go ahead and do this. So clerk client, let's see. I'll do this, copy that, and I'll come over here and let's do a, let me just copy all of this so that I make it a little bit easier here. So rather than slash, I'll say this is /user like this. So this is going to get, so first of all, it's going to apply the middleware, right? So it's going to detect whether or not I'm logged in or not, and it's going to do all that work for me behind the scenes. I don't have to think about any of it. It's going to get, so now I'm going to do a get user route. It's going to access the clerk client by doing that, and then it's going to look up the user and get the user based off of the user ID. And so the user ID, as we saw up here, is from this auth. So what we actually need to do, I believe, is we would go ahead and get the auth like this, and then we would get the user using the auth.user ID. And it doesn't like it because string or null is not assignable to the parameter string. Okay, I'm sure we can fix that, but my favorite is at ts ignore, and that's gone. And then we should be able to spit that user back. Otherwise, it'll say the user's not found. So let's save this, jump over to our app here, and hit refresh. We still have our user logged in. So now if we change this to user and load this, now we've got all this information about our particular user, including my image URL, my name, all kinds of stuff like that. So now I could use that to do all kinds of crazy stuff. So anyways, so that is the integration with Clerk. I think it's, it takes a couple of steps. You kind of do have to think through it a little bit because of the way we're using it. But if you did go into Clerk and you played around with, let me go back here. So they do have, they have a Node. They have a Node one. Install Node, which is the SDK for Node. Right. So you could, you get the user list. Oh, this is their SDK, so you can access and play around with. I think if you go in here, so now I should have users associated. So now I have my user here, and I can delete the user, impersonate the user. I can do a bunch of cool things here. So and this will give me all the information about what it has spit back for me. And yeah, so it's pretty cool. All right, so it's let's see, we've got some time left. I don't know. I think I could show you the roll your own auth stuff, but I think it's kind of, I don't know. This stuff is just so easy that I kind of feel like this is sort of the way that we want to go, and maybe we'll leave it. Maybe it'll be a short one today. So anyway, so take a look at the password protected environment stuff. I think it's a really interesting way, to be able to build all of these applications and have all these different versions, and then just have that extra peace of mind that you're not sharing that extra data, and because it's actually enforcing that password at the edge, after it's able to globally replicate itself to all the edge functions. It does. We can do all kinds of things. We can block every type of request. So we'd love to just hear feedback on that, and sort of like what are the things that you'd love to make sure that are or what other features would you want? What do you want blocked? How do you want to authorize an API with a block stage if you're not passing in or a password protected environment? If you're not passing in the cookie, how would you want to test some of that stuff? Also, how do you want to protect your developer sandboxes beyond just sort of having a URL that is going to pause itself when you disconnect and so forth. Would love to know more about that. Or just love your feedback on that. The other thing, again, with integrating a third party like a Clerk or a Clerk or an Auth0 or one of those, it's pretty straightforward. You can do, sort of if you're familiar with AWS, and one of the ways that AWS will do authentication is they can do like custom authorizers. You can do, JWT authorization with the HTTP APIs. There's a couple different things like that. Is that something that is interesting, like generating, using like a custom function or a custom authorizer? A lot of that stuff can happen in the runtime. The way that our runtime works is, then again, the code runs, so those middleware and some of those other things would run in all of your handlers. And so I mean, we're always open to new ideas and how you would like to do that. I think that, integrating something like Clerk is fairly simple once you kind of understand how the whole system works. Same with Auth0. You can do a bunch of things with OAuth and that kind of stuff as well. If you want to do more of that type of integration and so forth. But anyways, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. It's very, very powerful. Just love your feedback on it, and let me know if you ever want me to show you how to roll your own auth. But I will not take responsibility for you rolling your own authentication, because it is pretty tough. But okay. Well, so that's it for this week, and let me know what you'd like to see. Let me know some of your feedback, and check out, we updated our pricing as well to try to be sort of more value based on the number of environments that you're using, because again, each one of these environments is a separate AWS account that we manage on your behalf. So we tried to update the pricing a little bit to reflect how that works. So anyways, give it a try. Let me know your thoughts, and we will see you next week.